We're going to go look at Pillar Talks. For those who have been around for a while, you remember Pillar Talks. Oh boy. Pillar Talks were CIG's way of giving us like quarterly big deal talks about like the general direction of the game, which in practice is a great idea. Rather, in theory is a great idea. In practice, ended up kind of being just talks about a bunch of different parts of the game that were like in various parts of development and may or may not have been coming at various times. I think they realized that it wasn't doing a good job of sending the messages they wanted to. So they stopped doing them after like 4 episodes. But we have 5 episodes. We have all those episodes here. And these are big names. You got Tony Z here. You got Sean Tracy back there. Pretty sure Chris Roberts. I think those are Tony Z's hands. Those look like Tony hands. Chris Roberts is in here. These are good talks. So I figured we can get together, chill, chat, listen to what they used to say about how Star Citizen was supposed to develop, see what kind of things are still, consistent with what's going on and what might have changed a little bit, and just generally kick back because the garden is cool as shit. Y'all are dope, and I'm happy to be here with you. We'll start from here. Alpha 3.6 release, end of 2019, or no, mid 2019. Pillar Talks begin. Where did we start?
I'm not gonna. The camera's already rolling, so it's just.
We're doing it. Let's do it. We're doing it right now. This is literally the show. This is amazing. This
sounds very Seinfeldian. We're done.
It's a show about nothing. All right. So gentlemen, welcome to the first Pillar Talk. So this is a quarterly show. We've been talking a lot about doing different types of video content. We have Inside Star Citizen. And so that show we kind of defined as like the what, if you will, Inside Star Citizen, where this is going to be where we talk about the why. It's meant to be with our pillar directors or folks leading the pillars with Chris to talk a little bit more about the why.
Talk about that, like when we say pillar directors, I know we
we throw a lot of terms
around. So pillar directors, and really the core part is the gameplay pillar directors.
Right.
So these are the people that have made
Pillar directors sounds like the position of whoever was constructing the pyramids, because they were directing all the stone pillars into place for the. Sorry.
Worked in the business for a long time. I intimately trust to make really good decisions at a high quality level. Star Citizen and Squadron's so big and has so many aspects because, it's an FPS game, it's a flight sim, it's a space sim. I mean, basically in every game, throw it together and put it in a sci-fi world. It's very easy to get lost in the minutiae and the just sheer scale of what we're trying to do here. But that's what pillar directors are, and that's why this is called Pillar Talk.
And so I guess to open this up in 3.6, since we're going to talk a lot about the upcoming release, what in 3.6 kind of is exciting to you? Is there anything that stands out? I know there's a lot, but what is something that stands out to you? Tony, what about you?
I think on the gameplay system side, obviously the law system would be a huge win to get that out the door with 3.6. It gives a pretty large foundation on which to build for the future.
Good old law system. Where did it start?
Counterweight for all of these undesirable player actions that in the past have been largely left unattended. It's been up to other players to deal with them. Sure. And now with 3.6, we're delivering the first iteration of something that we're going to continue to do extensive evolution and development on this feature for the next several quarters.
So the question would be then in 3.6, what are the first things of the law system that people are going to get to experience?
One of the first things that they'll see is a greater breadth of laws. We've got 19 different laws on the books, everything from murder, possession of stolen goods, transportation of illicit products. Previous to this, you bought something, and the only reason it was technically yours was because we stowed it on your ship. But if another player blew your ship up and took the goods, or snuck on your ship, took them, did whatever, there was no repercussions. They could go sell it, get full price. Now with 3.6, when you buy something, unless you actually granted...
Crazy thing is you didn't even have the right to kill somebody who broke onto your ship until last year. 3.21, I think. 3.20, something like that.
Someone else, if someone else has possession of that, they're very limited in what they can do with it. You can't go to a normal law-abiding shop and unload all of this stolen cargo. You have to go to salvage yards, or you have to go to fences, and obviously...
So in 3.6, where would that be? Grimhex?
Yeah, we're still playing with the exact location. Right now, we're debating whether it's one or...
The thing about these features that they're talking about is the way that they are talked about. You never know if it's something that will be put in the game as the alpha implementation and then left to be the representative nature of that system, or if it'll be put in the game and then iterated on over quarters. Some things that happened, some things they didn't. The law system didn't really much. Like, some stuff surrounding the law system did, yes, but the law system, from what I can remember, besides little things around bounty hunting and reputation, I don't think the law system has really changed much since 3.6. Yeah, this is an old video. This is from 2019.
In each planetary system, I like the idea of making them a little bit more rare, and part of that's because I want there to be fewer places where you can unload illicit merchandise. The prices will be a fraction of what you get for legitimate goods.
If you're asking if Tony stayed at the company, yeah, Jake is confirming in chat, and also some of our folks from the garden, our community, ran into Tony 3 weeks ago now, I think, and like talked pretty candidly about his time at the company, his continued time at the company, and not what he's doing, but what he's doing, like fun things, they say, or something like that.
You also have to deal with the risk of any security agents that come across you during your travels. Every player is going to have to do the mental calculus.
So they have the choice. So they basically can lose their goods, pay the fine, or start to fight.
And then this whole security apparatus comes in to where more security reinforcements, interceptors, et cetera, pull. You've been dampened so that you can't basically jump out of the area, et cetera, et cetera. Prisons, which is where we want to go, somewhere within the next couple of quarters. Once we've arrested a player, then we put you on, within some sort of penal
respawn
colony.
in your nice home. We want to have consequences where people make judgment calls.
That's always a recurring theme with this game. It's such a big, extensive, open-ended sandbox. We're doing everything possible to give players the freedom to play the game however they want. But with all of this stuff, whether it's your equipment or your action towards other players and NPCs and stuff like that, there are always very definable consequences, repercussions to the actions you're going to take within the game.
Does this mean murdering someone doesn't carry the same penalty as parking my spaceship slightly incorrectly now?
Yeah, so
Zero tolerance society. Violations are just like, well, it's like a parking ticket, right? You got to pay it. And then certain violations are like, yeah, people are coming after you.
Well, we've introduced the concept of a jurisdiction, which is really just an area of space that specifies what laws apply within that area and the associated penalties.
If you have a parking violation on Hurston, you don't have bounty hunters chasing you all over.
That's exactly it. Law enforcement would only care about you in proximity to Hurston.
That'd be a great one. Vehicles.
Yeah. Content-wise, we've got the
That's how
Merlin.
reputation is. I don't know what they have planned for the crime stat system, but crime stats are kind of weird because they're just universal. Anywhere where there's a force of law enforcement, I guess they'll. Or is it split by jurisdiction? No. If you get a crime stat in I don't care, Crusader, you still feel it in Microtech, right? But like reputation should be a whole. Oh well, only Microtech's mad at me, so I'm just gonna chill in ArcCorp space for a while.
Not a full rework, it's just bringing it up to modern standards. It's quite an old ship. We've got the Archimedes, which is a variant of it, so that's sort of the racing version. It's got a really nice white clear coat finish to it. We've got the Vanguard rework that went from, we'll just tidy up a little bit to
Pretty full rework.
pretty full.
So the Vanguard owners will now actually have something that looks like a concept.
I think about 10% of the interior is left from the original and about 20% of the exteriors.
How did we get to that rework? Like, what made us make that much change to it?
The Vanguard that was in game.
Ooh. Current CS law is UEE based. Eventually, CS will be based upon your reputation. It wouldn't make sense to have UEE, CS, and Pyro, for example. So CS will be based on reputation. Okay.
Didn't really match up to the concept, which was much more beefy. This sort of like heavy long-range fighter.
Sure.
Went back to the concept to try to really nail it. We got all the cool little bits like a turret coming out,
So Basil.
or like even like headlights popping up.
It's one of those things where you start pulling away bits, more and more comes with it, and before you know it's like, right,
Let's do it right.
do it wholesale.
That's great.
So
Yes or no answer is acceptable here, John. There are things not on the roadmap for vehicles and ships.
absolutely, yeah. As we
You can give as many details as you want to give us. That's safe that can be said in here.
as we did last year with the Valkyrie and Arrow, our first two ships that went from concept straight through the pipeline.
Man, the
Valkyrie
Arrow
didn't
feels
know
like it's been
about
around
the walking
forever.
Doors at Citizen Con and saw it plastered
Yeah.
on the walls. Like,
What's that ship?
what's that ship?
Folks, I need help on who that guy is in chat.
Beautiful. That's great.
Our long-term goal is to sort of move towards more straight to playable the stuff if we can. I mean, obviously we don't have, our vehicle team is decent size, but it's not enough to get everything done. So
Back left guy?
have a balance of
Eric
some
Kyan
stuff
Davis,
sort
I'm
of
pretty sure he
bit more
is
longer
away from the
term,
company.
and then some stuff that would be playable. But as we
No, he's
move
still there.
forward and
Sorry
as we
about
get
that.
The vehicle team staffed up a bit more. Our plan is to shift to basically, nope, here's the new ship. You can play it in the game right now.
I think I'm thinking of
So there'll be a few surprises this year.
Yeah, good.
There you go. So when you're out in space and you see someone, you can talk to them, and you will have a separate channel to talk to your squad mates or teammates and stuff. So I think there was one patch where we had the FOIP and everyone had a great time, but then we turned it off because we were getting crashes that were kind of hard to track down. But this release, we should have most of that sorted out and taken care of.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I'm hoping to see a lot more use because the feature's great as long as people are using it.
Right, and this functionality, there's loads of areas where we want to start expanding the use. Service beacons are one where it's an implied, contract between two players, and so it makes perfect sense that if you're requesting fuel or requesting combat assistance or whatever it may be from another player, that you want a dedicated communication channel so that you can tell him the specifics.
Hey, you hear that?
you're
You hear
after.
that?
A lot of focus.
Beacons.
How can we make
Does that trigger you, AAK?
How can they communicate better?
Yeah.
Because
it kinda gets me.
Playing with people, it's like that's the fun,
Yeah, totally.
right? Not necessarily just doing it by yourself, or else you'd just be playing a single player game, right? So the FOIP and VoIP is an example, but there's a lot of stuff like the multi-crew. You and your crew will have to operate a ship efficiently, so you're in combat and fire.
What is my
breaking
field?
out, or you've got to replace fuses that are broken or fuel rods that have gone out. Your crewmates can run around
YouTube?
and keep the ship going in a way that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise, and that's like the advantage of a multi-crew ship versus a single-seater ship.
Oh,
We're working
AAK.
as hard as we can to get all the bits in place, so all that sort of starts to work. It's not going to be quite there with 3.6, but there'll be still more stuff happening with that.
Yeah, totally. Do we have any, one of the things we talk about a lot per quarter is the polish or quality of life. We're trying to inject as much as we can in each quarter release.
A really cool thing for me on the vehicle side is we've brought back the acceleration throttle. So we talked about this at CitizenCon.
Yeah.
It's essentially a throttle that controls your acceleration and thrust.
Anybody use the acceleration throttle? You even know how to use it? It's so obscure.
Previous
It's
design,
hold the right alt down and move your mouse wheel.
the ship tries to achieve it.
Almost barely ever use
Real
it.
world, I don't get my
Yeah,
car
you
and
do.
set cruise control to
Props
20
to you,
or
man. It's
30 or
greatly
50 or
useful, but I find it hard to build into my workflow when I'm flying.
the force that my thruster's putting out. And also, if you're flying an aircraft, you're generally,
Always at 100%.
yeah, you're not 100%. So I wanted to have something that was more first order. So like you would be more affecting the thrust, which was the original design and setup, which is what we had at CitizenCon. But then in the playback in combat, which tends to happen, everyone just basically has it 100%. And so we had a debate, and I was like, okay, well, I'll let you guys go with this. But then there's other reasons to be able to have the adjustment. And then I was like, look, why not have both? Insert appropriate meme right now.
Yeah.
But because there's no reason why you can't set, okay, here's what my
Sure,
limit
yeah,
is,
of
and
course.
here's what my thrust is.
You can do some really nice little things with it. You can do
The acceleration throttle it's basically like your speed limiter, but for acceleration. So you're limiting the rate of acceleration your ship can take, making it react more slowly, essentially. It makes it really nice to fly. So if you're flying through space and you want to do like a nice slow turn or like barrel roll in space, you turn down your acceleration limiter and your thrusters take longer to get you moving faster. So it looks a little nicer. Not incredibly useful, but I think it will be when it comes to flying in atmosphere with bigger ships for sure.
soft landings.
Yeah.
Just reduce that thrust and you just gently fall out to go rather than slamming down.
Speaking of soft landings, the new
VTOL
hover mode is going to. I think we all want to make a game that
Hover
reminds
mode.
us of what we see in the movies.
Hover
which is
mode.
There's a little bit of a wobble and it moves around. So below a certain speed,
Yeah.
if your ship has VTOL, it switches to
into
VTOL.
it.
Yeah, you have this sort of hover mode that's is pretty
Instead
cool.
of this weird-looking motion we have at the moment where you're strafing around up, down, you're more accurately tilting, rolling.
That's great.
If you pitch forward, you'll move forwards.
That's great, yeah.
Slightly changed the way shields work in 360. I won't get into the deep details of it.
Yeah.
Essentially, it allows the behavior of the shields to come through. So at the moment, most ships come with...
All right, I'm going to jump to the more exciting part of this one because we got to get into later pillar talks. That's when it gets good.
We were originally thinking, well, you would buy additional insurance for the extra weapons, but it's better to do it this way, which is your insurance covers whatever your ship's on, but there'll be some
Okay, insurance
value,
talk.
yeah.
This is actually a big deal because we don't get to hear about insurance too often.
See, oh well, I've got LTI insurance on this ship up to this amount of value, and so if I add additional value beyond that, then I pay some percentage of that on a recurring recurring basis in order to guarantee that all of that extra stuff will be outfitted on my ship when I go.
And I think what we'll do
Okay,
is...
so I think they're talking about the idea of like, even if you have insurance on your ship, that's just your base chassis covered. Upgraded components, weapons, and all that stuff is additional stuff that you're going to need to insure. And again, we don't know how that works. My hope is that that is strictly UEC and game payments that you make for that. But we don't know whether that can be bundled with other things or monetized in some way. But this is a pretty big topic because LTI is a bit of a nebulous area for people. Hard to know what exactly is worth what because insurance is a little bit up in the air. So it'll be interesting. My dog also does not like LTI, if you couldn't tell. So it'll be interesting to hear what she has to say or what they have to say about this. Not her. She's... That's what happens when there's a specific dog that walks past her. Okay.
Because we were originally thinking, well, you would buy additional insurance for the extra weapons, but it's better to do it this way, which is your insurance covers whatever your ship's on, but there'll be some adjustment in the deductible or the expediting fees based on the value of all the equipment. And then on the cargo insurance, what we really should do is you would have the opportunity, just like if I buy something online right now, do I want to have travel insurance? So if I'm at the commodities kiosk or whatever, and I'm going, give me, 100 SCUs of gold or something, it says, do you want to, for an extra 10% or 20%, do you want to insure your load? It's not 10 or 20%. I'm giving an example. Then you just have this
20 freaking percent for insurance.
I'm going to get attacked or I'll be fine, so I don't really want to spend the money, or well, I'd like to insure myself. It's the same as, do you want to take insurance on your rental car?
Do you want to basically live on the edge, take the chance, go out there? If you lose your cargo, you literally
never fly without rebuy. We're going to have our own version of that.
Not going to be quite there with 3.6. We'll also have ship rental. Kind of cool because ships just inherently are expensive. They have to be for the economics to work. But that means it's a fair amount of earning money in.
Okay, I'm going to go to the next one. How crazy was it that up until this point, 3.6, we couldn't rent ships in the game? Like, people talk about how this game is this and that and all this stuff, but like, it wasn't up until you could rent ships or buy ships in the game when it really finally felt like, okay, this isn't just all about spending the money to do things in game. Also, at that time, around that time, progress was starting to carry over between quarters. So like that early alpha felt a lot different than it did recently when you could progress a lot more with your character.
Vehicle pipeline director. This is your second rodeo.
Yep, surprise stand-in for Sean Tracy, who
yeah.
disappeared at short notice.
And Aaron, Chief Development Officer, welcome to your first Pillar Talk.
I try and avoid it as much as possible.
I think this episode, though, we're going to focus on a couple things. The first one, development. We're talking a little about the development process. We frequently will kind of go through.
Oh, chat's gonna have a field day with this one.
And we're doing that right now. So, Aaron, what are we here to chat about?
Working on the project, and we've adjusted a few times on the development side in terms of working out what works, what doesn't work. We noticed in the last two deliveries we missed it by a couple of weeks each time because basically some features were coming in late, and so we couldn't get the rest, the proper QA time to go in, and then you want to get it out.
There's no point having 1,000 features in the game if half the time half of them don't work how you would expect them to be. You're not going to have a fun time playing in that game.
So the idea is, rather than trying to get it done and squeeze it all into 3 or 4 weeks, we actually give ourselves plenty of time. So when we're delivering these features, we don't have more time to develop and make sure they're right. We have more time to really polish them. We have more time to really make sure that they, that they're fun, they work.
But does that change our release schedule on the PU at all?
We're still delivering every quarter, just that we're trying to get a cadence where half the teams are basically getting more time. We split up a bunch of the teams to smaller groups. They'll be working with 6 months worth of work. We're going to get 3.7 done in that period of time, so we can start the other teams overlapping. So a bunch of the teams are working on 3.8 stuff, while then the 3.7 teams who finish on 3.7 will then be working towards basically 3.9. You take that time, and then the development for it means that each of our sprint is basically 2 weeks. So rather than do 3 sprints of 6 weeks, actually it works out we can do more like 8 sprints altogether, which is 16 weeks.
What's your kind of plan to make sure that we stay on task and we still deliver every 2 quarters on a staggered development for your teams? Like, do you still want to put in place certain things that are like checks and balances and get it to QA? And is this
it's essentially the same process, just over a larger time frame, which just makes each of those individual gates a much
This
more
was-
achievable, set
I
of
think the
goals.
reason, I think that the mistake made here was making such a big deal out of staggered development, which, you know, it was their way of trying to be like, look, we're doing things to change things, but overall, basically they're still doing this from what I see. It's why we get a bunch of updates on features that are not coming in the next update, because there are people working on them, because you stagger the teams that are working on feature releases. It wasn't a revolutionary idea. But I think when it did not result in things completely turning on their head and like starting to make progress, it got mocked quite a bit, especially because of these talks.
Delivery, but why do we need to force all the teams all the time to be trying to hit this quarterly delivery?
It compromises the, like, especially on the dev side,
Yeah,
when in your mind you've got the first week of a quarter, you're doing your planning, you know what you're going to do, you execute on it, then you prepare it for the patch, and you go out to Evercati PTU and you're doing your feedback, and then you're expecting a date for it to be gone, and you start again when it goes.
God, this
past
is
that.
not a great pillar talk
The other
either.
date
Let's
doesn't
go
tend to be
to postmortems, because this is something we don't really get every patch anymore.
New features in now, we don't have the time, and things break, and it's frustrating. We want to get away from that. We want to make that now when we deliver. My huge drive is to make sure that from now on, every time we deliver, it is better than the last quarter you had. And we felt like the last quarter or two, because we pushed some stuff in, it wasn't quite as as good as we'd liked.
Yeah, that's right. And some of this comes from, I think, to throw anyone in here, some of this comes from the community, some of it comes even from the developers, right? Internally, like a lot of times we do a lot of postmortems, we do a lot of feedback gathering, and then we ourselves know these things, but like how can we make the experience good for the developers, for the community, but then also get the game to where we feel like it.
But yeah, like I talked about earlier, because you're moving away from just ticking off a feature and saying, technically it's done, that feature works, but you have to work around it by doing this, this and that. It allows people to sort of have more pride and just a great feeling about doing this thing. Like, this is a feature that I've worked on for 6 months and it works great. So now I'm happy for people to play it, rather than I was told I had to do this feature and this is what was provided
And
at
then
the time.
the trolleys came in and murdered everybody. All right, we're gonna move on to the next. This section might be interesting.
We have a whole list of the features that we apps 100% are going to deliver, but what we want to do is deliver them in a way that makes sense, and that means that we're going to go and get all the cool stuff we have working properly, and then when everything is working the way it should, I mean, at that point, that'll be for a game, that'll be more gameplay than pretty much anything out there already.
And then we haven't really talked about Squadron 42. Is there any impact to Squadron 42 with this new cadence?
I mean, John works and everything as well, but
it
it really should help. I mean, at the end of the day, this whole situation means that there's less downtime for people who are doing the squadron work and have to support stuff in the PU. We have the longer development cycles because a bunch of the work. All the squadron features are in the PU. I mean, it's a shared code base, so this whole thing should really help. Everybody in what they're doing.
Yeah, the people that are working on missions for Squadron are having to sort of work with the same stuff that goes out every quarter. Obviously, they get it as it comes in, but if people are struggling to do a certain feature in the PU, then spending longer to fix it means that the Squadron team gets that fix in a better state sooner, so it helps them.
So in terms of,
I believe this was also before
roadmap.
the period where they started to focus way more on Squadron than Star
We're going
Citizen.
to basically just break down exactly where we're going with all the features and so forth to get them to where they need to be. And we'll be sitting here in a year's time and we'll talk about some other improvements we want to do and so forth. But that's development. I mean, you can't stand still. You have to sit there and you learn from your experiences and you work out what's worked.
If you just blindly do the same thing over and over again, then nothing's going to
improve.
Yeah.
Chris said in CitizenCon last year is, our plan is to, when we have persistence, when we have some of these core features in, like we've got like the orgs working properly, which is part of this drive as well for the things we're doing, when we have the server meshing going, at that point, we feel like we have a game, and that's what we want to get to. So we're working while all this is going, which is part of this drive as well for the things we're doing, when we have the server meshing going, at that point, we feel like we have a game.
I just released a video, which if you watched it, thank you. It is our best performing video I have ever released. It reached 50,000 views in the first 20-something hours, 23 hours. blew me away because you guys remember I was on the stream earlier this week saying, hey, are you guys interested in hearing about 4.0? Like, is this a video that you would be interested in? And people were interested in it. But in that video, I was trying to highlight just how consistently the topic of server meshing has come up to be a thing about where this, like a very common milestone that is referred to in Star Citizen as being a significant point in the development. Whether it is a big point or not, whether it does change things or not, there's no denying that when server meshing comes into the game, whether that is later this year like it's planned, or it happens later than that, we should be on the lookout for things to start changing in some way after that. I don't know how they will. I don't know what the main vibe will be. But I think that's just the most exciting thing about the fact that server meshing is coming along, is that it should catalyze a lot of other things to start happening too.
Going at that point, we feel
watched
like
it on
we
stream
have
last
a
night.
game.
Thank you.
And that's what we want to get to. So we're working while all this is going in.
Summit watched a video on stream last night. Hey, that's cool. Sweet.
Cleaning everything up, we're polishing up, we're making all these features work great, we're adding all the sub features in there and so forth. And at that point, we have the game that people can just play and really love and play. And then what you know, it's great after that. Every quarter, we give them more, we give them more, we give them more. We're then going to basically just keep on building on this for for years to come.
That about says it all. Well, gentlemen, that was it. Pretty painless pillar talk. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.
And
Cool.
obviously, thanks subscribers and backers for letting us do all this stuff, right?
Always, yeah.
All right. Well, let's get back to work. Thank you.
Hey, yeah. Okay. So that was Pillar Talk, August 30th, 2019. This was before CitizenCon. And you can tell, because they didn't talk about any feature stuff here. It was, here's our development, here's our release schedule, roadmap, cadence, force modems. But then let's jump to the next one, which is December 18th, 2019. So shortly after CitizenCon. Oh yeah, look at that. They're talking about planet tech and new missions and new space stations. And CitizenCon be like that. Let's listen to what they have to say about this, because this was after a pretty big CitizenCon. This is actually after the last CitizenCon we got to have before last year's, at least in person. Which is a big deal because this was a significant demo. It had a lot of stuff that was a little more believable for players going into the next couple of years of Star Citizen. It was the first time they teased Pyro and server meshing in the game. So this was just, there was a lot of pressure in the game at this point of, are we actually going to get to see Pyro or Microtech or NPCs flying ships in atmosphere and all this stuff that we saw in the demo. Spoiler, we didn't. But here's the talk about it.
Big thing that we're shipping with 3.8 is Planet Tech V4, which is a major step forward for how we realize our universe and star systems. And the place that most people will have seen it in CitizenCon would have been Microtech, which is also getting shipped with 3.8. Now we're only shipping Microtech itself, not its moons. New Babbage and the spaceport exteriors will be there, but the interior of it won't be until 3.9, just because we really want to do it right. But we've worked quite a lot on sort of the environmental effects in CitizenCon. Showing outside of Microtech, flying down, and just seeing how seamlessly
the transitions
to detail. There's no popping, there's no LODs that you can appreciate. You're in a snowstorm and you can barely
Planet
see
Tech V4.
Your, helmet visor.
Planet Tech V4 felt like a big deal back then, but looking back on it, I think the clouds make such a huge difference. These volumetric clouds, it's crazy. But the weather systems of here, I think we could still match not just the way the weather looks, but how it spawns a little bit better.
Slush, or on your canopy there's slush, or you're in a rainstorm, there's raindrops, you're going through a cloud.
What we've been developing, and we've talked about it a little bit, is what we call the actor status system. Basically, there's a Visio chart of every single thing that affects every single other thing. And what we wanted to do was not just wait till this is all in, but do some stuff that's extremely relevant to what we're doing right now. And the most relevant that you have on an ice planet is obviously the cold. So we want the characters to be reacting to the cold. And as you guys have seen in CitizenCon already, hypothermia isn't just your suit's not warm enough, so take some damage and you die. That is kind of the typical gamey, here you have some temperature, I give you a number, oh, you can't handle that number because you don't have the right suit on. and you die. It's not that simple for us. I think it's got much more of the fidelity that you've come to expect from Star Citizen.
Look at how intense that shake is.
It's not that simple for us. I think it's got much more of the fidelity that you've come to expect from Star Citizen, where it's not just some simple gameplay
And
number.
before, we had room system, which is just breathing. So either you have oxygen, you don't have oxygen. And also our suits before were just purely damage mitigation.
Yep.
You know, on bullets or projectiles coming at you. Now with this, I think internally we classify it as basically combat or utilitarian for the armors.
That's right.
And so then it gives us purpose for the utilitarian armors.
Sure, and you've got to make a decision as a player. If you got a Hornet, you can only store so many armors. You can only store so much stuff.
So you're talking about the visuals. You're talking about the impact on the characters themselves. It's interesting to think of what this means in terms of the potential to customize.
I see the questions in chat about the re-entry effects. They aren't turned off. If you go back to my stream on whenever I was just doing master modes, we saw re-entry effects in the Arrow, I think, when we were flying down into Hurston. So they're there. Just might not be seeing them in certain places for some reason. I don't know.
The economy. For example, the shops, what they're selling in terms of clothing and armor would be dramatically different on an ice planet like Microtech versus a planet that's burning hot, or a planet that's incredibly toxic, etc.
I guess things would be worth more or less too. Like, I mean, if you're selling a bathing suit on Microtech.
But it's also like imagine a place. It's like you would expect to see lots of fairly deep wool jackets and stuff on a cold planet, whereas you'd see T-shirts elsewhere. Whereas you'd see more utilitarian gear over on Hurston. Stuff that's intended to deal with the noxious fumes and pollution over there.
And not only that, the tool set for it we have is far, far more powerful and actually artist-friendly and quick to use. So
yeah, I mean, it's an exciting thing for the artists. Like to give you an example, is that that making this transition, any technological transition that we make within the game, we usually have to backtrack over a bunch of old content that we've had in place, and it's not so old, but we have planets, we have moons. So when you're changing underlying technology, like
all right, we're jumping forward to object container streaming.
3.8 is going to have server object container streaming, so SOCs as we call it.
Yeah.
So what do you see as the gameplay benefits?
SOCs.
From my standpoint, the biggest one will be AI and kind of the way that the ships feel in combat as well as the FPS.
Yeah, I feel like it's really they went and they had client-side object container streaming, right? COCS, and they had server-side object container streaming. SOCS. Why was server-side object container streaming the only one that got an acronym? Don't understand that.
With our server frame rates, the way that they currently run, it's basically 7 to 10 frames. When we get it running at 30 frames a second on the server, you'll see a major benefit.
So it's a lot less precise than what the client is, and so they get out of sync, and then you get weird behavior, a lag. And so if you get the server frame rate, which our target is 30 frames per second up, then the experience on the client side is better. And a lot of that weird AI behavior that people see, or doors not opening when they should open, isn't actually necessarily a bug. It's just that the server's gummed up or so far behind it, it's not telling the client in time.
We know all about that.
Exactly.
From my point of view, the biggest improvement on the SOC stuff is really going to be the fact that it's going to break us free from these limitations in terms of how many locations and how much content we can put into the solar system. So it's tangentially related to what Pappy is saying in regards to, he's talking about the frame rate side of it. The part that I'm saying is, well, now we can get all these new locations without impacting the frame rate at all, because the server that you're on is still only loading what's absolutely necessary for the players that are on your server. And so what this is going to allow us to do is put more outposts, more space stations, more derelict ships, more caves, all of this content that heretofore we've been so constrained. We've had to basically weigh everything from the point of view of, well, what is this?
Was this true? Do you guys feel like a number of places that we got in the game expanded after server-side OCS? There's certainly more points of interest than we ever had before, but it feels more like server meshing is kind of the actual sort of, oh, not going to limit the amount of places you can have. Because it wasn't until after 3.10 or so that we did start seeing more like caves come in. But honestly, it wasn't until I think 3.15 or so that we started to see better outposts and derelicts and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know how much. I don't really remember how much server-side OCS changed things right away. It certainly wasn't as big a jump as client-side OCS when that came in, but I think it allowed more POIs to be added. I can't remember for sure.
It's going to do to server performance, because we know every single server, regardless of whether there's a single player there, is going to have to load this. And so we've already been in the mode for for the last quarter or two, to where we're starting to get very sensitive about bringing in new content, whether we can afford it.
We've been that way since our corp went in.
Yeah.
I mean, I think with 3.7 we wanted to put at least 100 caves in, and at least 100 in. I think we got 15.
I think right now, if you take a
Man,
look
I don't
on
know
servers,
how many caves there are,
it's anything
because
like
you can't really find them.
entities. It could be millions of physical entities, and so even with really powerful.
Right, we got distribution centers now. Yeah, we've got like derelict outposts and stuff, all these locations, but those locations all were putting a lot of pain on the game, When it comes to talking about being able to put locations in the game, do they mean that we can kind of barely fit them in the game, and then when you go there, your game lags a bunch, or do they mean we can put them in the game and they can run well? Because it doesn't feel like they'll run well until server meshing is running it. There are a lot of points in the game, though. Would be interested to know how many points of interest there are in the game in total.
Powerful servers, which we have, that can take more time than we want. So the whole idea of server OCS is that you try to only have the bits you need to be simulating with, and therefore the frame rate should be higher. So our target server frame rate is 30 frames a second, and like you said, currently, with everything overloaded with content, it can get down to 5 or 6 frames a second, and that's when you don't have such a great experience, even if you have a high frame rate locally.
Absolutely, yeah.
See, now that's the biggest thing right there, because we're talking about server frame rate and how server meshing is going to help server frame rate. Clearly, as SOX did not help, because he's saying before SOX, you were at 5 or 6 frames. Now, if you're in a full server, it's still the same way. So that might have been true to some extent, but it definitely, the problems they're talking about here have still not been solved, a few years later. And it feels like that's a server meshing thing.
Currently, with everything overloaded with content, it can get down to 5 or 6 frames a second, and that's when you don't have such a great experience, even if you have a high frame rate locally.
Absolutely, yeah. And for me, it's on the two different.
They did increase server size, yeah.
Have those, so on the technical content kind of side, the big difference is actually because we deal with.
Have we ever had frame rates of higher than like back then after SOX happened? Were the frame rates getting up to 15, 20? Because I don't actually remember. I don't remember it ever being that great. I thought it was always in the single digits.
The tools and the developer tools on that side, I think the biggest difference for us will be some internal differences, the turnaround time for us to run. So, we're using so much RAM right now on the servers, so to be able to spin up the entire universe on a local dev box on just, a normal kind of workstation was getting to the point that either one, it took a long time to get that thing loaded, because without server object container streaming, it didn't work like the client did, which was just loading what it needed. It was going to bring everything in. So that took some time. But then additionally, we're at a point that you would just run out of memory. You wouldn't be able to do it. So we even put developer tools in place to be able to exclude stuff from the universe. But that would mean that if you ever had to do testing on any of those ones you've excluded, you got to shut down, restart up. So basically, the developer workflow is going to be a lot better, because the turnaround is going to be a lot quicker.
The next stages is using the tech in the editor, also in Squadron 42 for the same reasons, where the level of detail that we're putting into all the locations and the star systems that we have in Squadron, requires you couldn't fit it all in memory, and you wouldn't want to fit it all in memory. And the server OCS, which is basically a kind of an authoritative version of the worldview that you can sort of move a viewpoint around and stream in just the bits you need and stream out, it would make a big difference for that.
Yeah, when your iteration loop just takes that.
So maybe after, it is better after a fresh patch release, and maybe that sort of decay period is what server meshing aims to solve. I'll do as many videos as I can about all this stuff. I'm never gonna fully understand it. Like, it's so complex. I'm not about it.
The
All right, this
server-side
was
OCS.
this was the huge thing I was talking about. I think this was what changed. This is around 2020. Yeah, when platform persistence came in, we started to see progress across quarters, and everything changed. If you go back and look at the funding calculator, yeah, the pandemic helped, but things started exploding after they got persistence in of any sort.
We don't have the full universe persistence in, so we're going to have a more enhanced version of persistence in 3.8 than we previously had. So if you buy things or rent things or do stuff with in-game money that you've earned, and the in-game money you earn will have the ability to persist it between patches even from 3.8 onwards. But the proper persistence is I go anywhere, I take my Elroy's cup, put it, I get my coffee at the space station, I take it with me, I get on the spaceship.
Coffee cup in the forest.
I fly to a planet, I walk in a forest, I litter, I drop it on the floor in the forest, I get off, I fly away, and then Sean flies to the forest and sees an Elroy cup
Sean's like, yeah, give me that freaking coffee cup.
when he arrives in that area. So
And I grab it and I sell it.
yeah, there you go.
But then you come back and you think that there's a bug in the game because it's gone, whereas in reality, Sean took it.
Yeah, so,
Jack took
the second stage of the
And that's what we got with persistent entity streaming. That was the whole big hubbub about persistence in 3.18 and why it was such a horrible patch for launch.
SOX is the full persistence comes in with what we call the iCache, which basically
Which they used to call iCache.
all the state and position of any item in the game when you move away from it. So if you
Well,
have to, which is
iCache was different.
right now, it
It's complicated.
streams out like what's there, and right now we're persisting it in the server's memory, but we aren't persisting it back to a cloud database just yet. So if you play the session, you drop stuff, put stuff everywhere, it'll all persist in the session in 3.8 server OCS. But in a future version, I don't know when iCache is coming in, but with that, what will happen is, besides us saving the state, which we already will do in memory in 3.8, it will then save it to a back-end database. So if you come back a week later and go to that location, as long as Sean hasn't come and stolen my cup, and I go back and go, oh, I dropped my cup on the forest, the cup will be there. And the really cool thing about that is that all the dynamic items, whether they're cups or spaceships or guns or armor suits or a note you leave someone, will persist in the world where they are. And I don't really know any MMO that has that level of detail at the scale that we have that allows you to do that. And so that is very cool, because once that's running, that also means that like you want to create a settlement on a planet,
You can.
you can.
Yeah, that's the big part of it. Is it's emergent, and they're actually affecting the world, the universe. In so many games, it's all very scripted. It's all very, they say you're affecting the world, but hey, after 200 fights and all that, there's no direct affection, right? But this is actually an evolution by the players. They're again creating settlements, setting up things.
Yep.
Mission time. Don't know what they were saying about missions back then, but we're going to hear about missions and space stations, and then we're moving on to the next pillar talk.
We got some cool mission stuff coming in
Yep.
3.8.
The biggest introduction would be the 890 jump mission. And then from there, we're doing a lot of kind of quality of life passes on the way that the mission works, how things are doled out to the player, what actually happens in the mission. Some of them are a little bit boring, and figuring out how we can interject new things. Same with interjecting AI and other aspects to freshen it up.
Yeah, and that's one that we want to capitalize on. Going forward, I think we're at the point now to where the combat is mature enough, and some of the other loose ends
There's
that we need to
definitely
tie up.
improvements to the combat that will be in 3.8 that you haven't seen, that people haven't seen.
Look at that interaction there. The way he kind of gets cut off, but he's ready to keep talking. And but you can't, because it's Chris.
I think we're at the point now to where the combat is mature enough, and some of the other loose ends
There's
that we need to
definitely
tie up.
improvements to the combat that will be in 3.8 that you haven't seen, that people haven't seen in 3.7, or didn't even see in the video we did with because that was super early work in progress on the 890 jump mission. That I think all the time the AI is getting better, their ability to pathfind, beyond 3.8, or just pathfinding on planets, or arriving on a ship, getting off a ship, getting coming in as reinforcements.
Transitioning between different
Yeah,
zones.
people riding AI, riding the tram, for instance.
Yeah, that's a huge one.
But that's one of the most interesting ones to me.
It is a huge
Not in
one.
3.8, just to lay one out.
Still waiting for that. Not 3.8, not 3.24. going to be 4 point something.
I would say
it will be in 3940.
Well, they should have cut it off before that part. Why didn't they end that clip 3 seconds earlier? Why did they let that last part be in there?
not in
3.8, just to let everyone know.
Right there. Just stop it right there and move on to the next part. Don't let
it will be in 3940.
Why let that be in there? Oh my God. That was back at the time when they were hoping that it was going to go from 3.9, hopefully to 4.0. And here we are at 3.23 going into 4.0. And NPCs still cannot transition between the different navigation links like that. Man, I hope that's something that happens in 4.0. Because holy crap. That was... Why did they...
Also, one other thing we're delivering with 3.8 is...
Maybe it will be in 4.0, yeah.
Space stations or rest stops. You want to tell us a bit about that? Because they've greatly expanded from what we have.
Yeah, just the overall size of them, the visual difference between them, the hub sizes that are in there, the way that we procedurally generate them. We've got HABs, we've got Elroys, having them in low orbit around planets.
So they'll basically be a sort of geosynchronous station that will be for each one of the major planets. You don't have to go all the way down to you can go there, you can save in orbit versus having to go all the way down to the planet.
And also certain people that have certain ships that will not be able to land on planets.
They can go there, yeah.
Yes, they can go there and then obviously get transferred down.
One of the other long-term projects we have is sort of the combat, right? So there's the FPS combat, which you get, you already hinted at that you've been increasing some of the reaction and the speeds.
Exactly.
We've still got more to do. I think there's some more networking stuff that we have to do to make that better. Vehicle combat's another big one, right?
We didn't mention that is coming into 3.8 is the Animus missile launcher. It's a FPS missile launcher. It's got a 3 missile sort of range.
The gameplay is not as simple as, lock missiles, fire, and basically you're going to do a lot of damage. It's you need to get in close enough, or first you need to wear down their scout ships, or first you need to knock out the defensive turrets, or first you need to do, one of a number of different things so that you can actually get that torpedo, through those defenses and actually, impact these, these big capital ships where we really want to start.
Sir, what are you talking about? They were just talking about the Animus.
It's
what
got
happened?
a 3 missile sort of range.
The gameplay is not as simple as, lock missiles, fire, and basically you're going to do a lot of damage. It's you need to get in
he just jumped into ship missiles, I guess.
Close enough, or first you need to wear down their scout ships, or first you need to knock out the defensive turrets,
or it was just weird editing, maybe.
One of a number of different things so that you can actually get that torpedo, through those defenses and actually impact these, these big capital ships where we really want to start drawing players and or AI units together and get them all fighting and making it feel like one big fleet battle as opposed to these much smaller scale things that we've had to date.
And there was one thing I was going to say on the vehicle experience team that's kind of a cool thing that I like for 3.8 is we've implemented this look ahead system which sort of simulates the way you are. Like if you ever look at Terada's had all these really cool badass flying stuff, but he's got he's using the
Track-IR.
I'm not sure if it's Track-IR or he's using our FOI ped tracking. But you can see as a pilot or as a car driver, when you're turning, you actually look, you turn in. So the look ahead system basically manages a bunch of things where your velocity vector is going to be, where your target is, and they all have different weights, and then it weights the camera towards there, but not terribly. So you basically get the feeling of, I'm looking into my turn, or I'm kind of guiding towards a target. So the cool thing is that the cockpit now, it sort of feels real and visceral around you. Of course, you can turn it off in the options, but I really feel that, and we've also been tweaking the chase camera.
I'm kind of over listening to combat. Let's move on to the next pillar talk because they're getting good. I think here we start talking more about like Pyro and stuff like that, so it'll get interesting. So here's a new pillar talk. February of 2020. That's actually really soon after this last one. How much are you going to have to talk about just 3 months later? Looking into 2020. Let's see. Server meshing, persistence, Pyro. Okay. Theaters of war. Oh, this should be interesting. Let's go.
That's one aspect. The other aspect is we're actually with 3.8 going to introduce sort of our I don't know whether you want to call it baby long-term persistence, but the full long-term persistence plan, which we call the iCache. So what we're really talking about is medium term. So like, what's the proper persistence look like?
I would say that it's getting us away from the traditional concept of saving in a game where I have to explicitly save something at a particular point, and this is just becoming more realistic to where wherever you leave items, wherever you place items, they stay in perpetuity unless some other player or perhaps
or the system we decide to there's too many cups in a location, and we know that'll be a problem when we stream it back.
Did they just cut this into 2 parts? This talk, is that what's happening here? I feel like it's the same talk.
We clean up a few before we stream.
I thought you were going to talk about like a janitor coming around and cleaning up mug cups, but I guess that's an option.
Well, it depends on what you're talking about. It's like you would expect realistically if you left a cup on a table in a place, it's like, yes, that's going to be gone. That's going to be gone the next day.
I do it all the time at the office. It just comes right back to my desk somehow.
And there would be mechanisms for all of these. So if you're actually there to witness it, then at some point there is going to be a janitor. He is going to come in and he is going to grab that cup and put it over in the sink, et cetera, et cetera.
But the difference beyond 3.8, the iCache system that we're talking about is, not only saving it sort of essentially in memory or off in the local sort of cache database to a back-end cloud database, so that if you came back a month later, it can be retrieved from the database, and then when you come to that area, the state is the same. So
yes, this is 4 years ago, but and yes, the iCache system didn't work, but what he just said is the way that it works. That's the whole replication layer connecting to the entity graph and using persistent entity streaming to keep us updated is what he just described. And that was a pretty big deal that they achieved that at some point, because obviously you sit here and you listen to these pillar talks and you're like, okay, cool, this stuff sounds great, but when are you guys actually going to make this work? And over the last year or so, it has been starting to work. So it's good to see.
And that's I think the really cool thing with long-term persistence is that allows us to almost shape the world with this persistence. So like as a player, I could make a homestead on a planet and build myself a little outpost or a hut, or deploy some defenses, or place that there, go back, come back, and my home's still there as long as someone else.
And it's not just to be clear, it's not just a you thing. It's like, well, if you build that homestead in the middle of nowhere and someone happens to stumble upon it, then they can interact with it, they can raise it to the ground, they can customize it, they can have them and their friends move in. It's like you don't really know what the state's going to be.
They could just, if somebody comes across your base, they could just freaking blow it up and move on. Oh man, I mean that is true if you're in dangerous space, but imagine if you could just not guarantee your base would be there if you came back.
Out in these public places.
It's completely emergent behavior that's kind of like what you would see in the real world, really.
These are all actually very simple things to leverage this long-term persistent functionality.
Yeah, and it sounds so simple, but the emergence of it is incredible.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly it, but that's what we do so often, which is we build in the low level, the fundamental mechanics, and then you get all of this complex functionality just naturally results.
I think the key is our planets are fully realized, every single square inch is realized on them. There's a vast amount of real estate, and it's great. I mean, we're going to be working hard, and we build tools to populate this stuff and put outposts. But if the players themselves can also be doing their stuff and creating outposts or bases, then this whole world becomes alive and breathing. And speaking of the resources and the collecting, so one thing we didn't really mention in persistence, but that's a stage that's slightly different than the sort of iCache persistence we talked about, is persistence of resources on moons and planets, right?
In fact,
oh my gosh, seriously. Persistence of resources like that. I still don't think that you can really know as an explorer where to go to find specific deposits of stuff to report back to people. I still think it's kind of like maybe on a per moon basis you can figure that out, but we're still not quite there.
Our team is doing it this quarter.
For 3.9.
For 4.3.9.
Yeah,
that's
so
3.9.
Yeah.
So the cool thing with that, right, is that now there's just always that whatever the mineral is there, but with the persistence, absolutely, if there's like a really strong vein of stuff there, it will be gone if players are there and they've already mined it out.
And this goes back to, again, it's one of the things I find most interesting. Yes, it's discovery. It's actually finding.
And that's exploration and scanning.
That's exactly it. And eventually, like right now, we're still very limited. You basically fly over the surface of a planet and you happen to come upon stuff. It's like eventually we want to be able to do more analytical, a more detailed analysis of a planet so that you can find these things, but it's time consuming. Intensive, requires equipment.
It's here.
That's exactly it.
Because a lot of times you find the rocks and you're like, I don't know which one it is.
Not only is it,
or I don't remember.
Not
which
only is
one
it here,
is.
but it's most of these things, excepting things like plant growth that regrow and things like that. But when you're talking about metals and minerals and things like that, there are a fixed quantity of those within the ground in a given area, and that's what we're looking to deliver for 3.9. So that there is this much gold in this particular area, and if you happen to extract it,
Did
over
we
the course
get?
of,
Did we get that? 3.9. Did they do something with the resource update? I don't recall anything like that. Added 2 new service harvestables. Okay. Introduced volatile mineable ore. Added mining sublaser items. So they changed up mining. Resource distribution, from what I know, changed in 3.19. Not 3.9. That might have been something that they jumped the gun on talking about a little bit. New features. Klesher, Babbage. Mining laser sub-items. Volatile ore. Customized weapon attachments. Extreme environments. No, I don't see anything about resource changing. Didn't get veins in. I don't know if they were talking about veins in particular, but at the very least, just reliable spawns for resources. Like, he's talking about that pretty confidently. But no, I'm not seeing anything about it.
a day or 2 or 3 days, whatever, it's like there will gradually become less and less and less. And then you need to go out and find a new location. And this is where it starts getting interesting to where
Well, there'll be conflict over the
that's
locations,
exactly
right?
it.
So-
And it's easier for me to follow a miner to wherever he's going on the presumption that he's already found some valuable place than it is for me to go scan and do all of this analysis of the planet and find my own location, which might involve who knows eventually hours and hours of work to find a really rich one. And so now you'll have people tagging along, following
Driven by, oh yeah, this is a great place to mine resources, therefore I can make money. And I mean, it just all emerges, that gameplay emerges out of it, and then if it feeds into sort of the background universe simulation that we're, the thing that you're working on, Tony, that we're running, that I just think I haven't seen a game like this, and it is literally like a second
Neither have I.
universe that you can just escape into.
Still waiting.
So that's persistence. I mean, we touched on a lot of other things.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We get it.
So let's have a talk about, obviously, our goal is to
Oh, this should be interesting,
a
this
new
next
solar
topic.
system, right?
Yeah, we're not going to be in Stanton forever. I think that was such an important thing to do at CitizenCon. It's been such a great evolution of it, just in scale, right? If you think about it, right?
Yeah, well, exactly, because
And,
in that demo that we do, SOX is running. That's how it all works.
That's how it
and,
works. Yeah.
As we enter the jump point and we're going through the wormhole, Stanton's going away while we're loading in Pyro.
Yeah.
And then we come out through jump hole and Pyro's there, and it's all seamless. There's no loading screens. There's no, there's no cutaway or anything. It just all happens from gameplay.
Still
straight away.
mind-boggling to me.
It was good training to start in probably one of like the 2 or 3 most of all the solar systems planned. One of the 2 or 3 most difficult in terms of 4 planets, 12 moons.
Four landing zones.
It's the landing zones. Yeah,
it's the landing zones.
the
That's
detail.
gonna-
But if we'd started,
Pyro's a lot lighter weight.
Well, the point I'm making is it's forced us to basically deal with a lot of the most complicated problems sooner in the process, so that going forward now, we've got a solid foundation to deal with, any quantity of content, decoupling, the frame rate from necessarily, how much stuff needs to be loaded by any given server and things.
I can't even say that fast.
And also the Planet Tech V4 is allowing them to,
Iterate and do it
Pyro,
faster,
I think
that's
has
the idea.
6 or 7 planets.
6 or 7 planets.
And
They're
then,
not,
and then a lot of moons.
They're not. I think we're only going to have a couple of landing zones, but it's not. It doesn't have the population density of Stanton, but there's a lot of places you can visit. But we have the tools, and we'll probably Pyro is sort of a hotter system. So we're going to have, that's where the active status
comes in.
the
Everything
environments.
has been, I just feel like we're starting to really coalesce everything, right? And that's what really excites me for this year.
So let's talk a little bit about the jump point side of it.
The jump points are a way for us to introduce new things into that solar system, because again, Pyro or Stanton shouldn't have everything that it needs. It should be pulling in from other solar systems. So that's introduces new things for the economy, and then
Yeah, that's really key, and I wonder how much that's going to be built into 4.0. How much are they going to intertwine the economies of these two systems when they drop it in? From my perspective, they should be completely reliant on each other. We should have missions, cargo routes, escort missions, every kind of thing going back and forth between Stanton and Pyro to give us the feeling that they rely on each other and we have to do gameplay between them, or else there's going to be not as much people going back and forth, you know? Got to have reasons to venture into Pyro.
Obviously, once in Stanton or Pyro, when we start opening other jump points, then that basically really starts messing with the economy, or it creates new opportunities for the players to run missions or do other aspects of gameplay that they find interesting.
Yeah, I like the economic implications of basically having a diversity. You know, some of these holes are longer lasting, some of them are shorter duration. There is a discovery element, so there are players that will devote good chunks of their time towards scanning, trying to find these things. When they find one, it's like, is this a shorter path, a longer path? Mapping it, as you said. The economic impact, what changes when all of a sudden, this incredibly long.
There's also that. They talk a lot about how much gameplay there's going to be inside of jump points, and I'm sitting here like, is there really? Are you really going to be able to go around to this space and map out a new path to another system? Let's say that again.
They're longer lasting, some of them are shorter duration. There is a discovery element, so there are players that will devote good chunks of their time towards scanning, trying to find these things. When they find one, it's like, is this a shorter path, a longer path? Mapping it, as you said. The economic impact, what changes when all of a sudden, this incredibly long distance, all of a sudden for some period of time winds up becoming quite accessible. It's like it completely upends the economy. It changes everything for for the duration of that thing, and these wind up becoming very valuable. All of a sudden, you're going to have to basically exert a lot of outwards pressure to maintain control of that thing.
Yeah. What kind of new gameplay do we think we're going to be introducing with Pyro? I mean, obviously it's a
lawless system. I mean, really.
Well, lawless, right?
That's the biggest issue which I see, which is when you're in that system, you should always feel more pressure. It should be more dangerous. You should be more anxious. You should always be more concerned. When you go there, when we were talking, in the previous discussion about the melee combat and stuff, it's like just going to get your ship may be an exercise in concern.
There might be somebody sleeping in your bed.
Well, and I guess from my standpoint, I wanted it to feel almost like the Wild
Yeah,
West,
I'm sleeping in my bed.
And I don't know what you're going to do to me. And so am I going to take extra cautions? Am I going to shoot first, or are you going to shoot first? What are you going to do? And then that cat and mouse gameplay associated with it.
And then how about sort of the other aspects of sort of we've got the resource.
I think to lure
whether
people
you're
into
extracting minerals and various that maybe you could get there that you can't get.
Yes.
That's the carrot, which is, so why would you go to this incredibly dangerous, lawless place? It's like, well, there must be something. That's exactly it. It's the risk reward, which is that's where you can really make the big bucks. That's where you can make the killer return. There are some exotic materials in greater in greater quantity there than in other places. But you're going to have to be willing to get bruised in order to retrieve them.
And I think Pyro,
that should be true on the launch of the system.
Exactly what the release is, but it's going to be at some point next year. It won't be 3.9, maybe after that at some point. But it's a bit early to promise because we still have to make sure a few things are going. But for instance, if you're in a system like Pyro, where there probably won't be a lot of stations that you can go and get fuel, you may want to be able to collect fuel yourself with your ship, or someone can make a good living by selling it to people in Pyro.
One of the next occupations up will be salvage, and I would expect it any kind of like lawless place, a lot of conflict. You'd have a lot of debris, a lot of derelict ships, a lot of stuff to salvage, a lot of value for people that basically want to strip whether it's the hull of a ship or the internal components and things of that sort.
Yeah, no, it's super cool. So speaking of that, so we talked about lawless system, following jumping, basically jumping someone's resource area. So one thing that's definitely coming in 3.9 is prisons. So do you want to talk about that? Because I'm actually quite excited by kind of just really
this is one place where the law system improved. We talked about earlier at the beginning of this talk.
This idea that, that's your penalty. You've got to do some time for being a bad person. So you don't want to talk about it?
Yeah. So we're gonna keep iterating on the law system for another several quarters. The prisons are basically the next major step forward. We've added an automated prison to Aberdeen, and what it really does fundamentally is It increases the consequences for you doing all these, for you doing all of these illegal actions. It will make every player, that's engaging another player, just whether it's for the fun of it or to basically, pick on their, take their resources, steal their ship, whatever. It's like now there's this whole prison thing. You don't get your ship. You're gonna be stuck in there for a longer period of time. You have the potential to escape. You have the potential to reduce your sentence. But in general, the penalty is much more substantial than us simply allowing you to, to restart.
So, my big objective with the game is to not have people basically respawn. You want to keep your ship as long as possible. You want to keep alive as long as possible.
I want the cybernetics.
I'm sorry, guys. We have to. Gonna come back to this trailer constantly when they bring up stuff like this. It's just they made it too easy. It's far too easy to do this. Let's go back. Let's see. What did you say? What did you say, Chris?
Not have people basically respawn. You want to keep your ship as long as possible. You want to keep alive as long as possible.
I want the.
But the thing is, I've died 1,000 times.
Man, that's weird. This trailer, dude. Why did this trailer come out? Like, there's so much messaging about, like, we want people to not be dying very often, like, constantly throughout this game's history. And then they just released a trailer, and they're like, yeah, we died 1,000 times, 100 times. Death! Yeah. It's first of all, don't lose your mind about us making fun of this trailer, okay? We move on, yeah. But it's fun because it's so weirdly out of place. Drew, thank you for the sub. Appreciate you.
Spawn. You want to keep your ship as long as possible. You want to keep alive as long as possible.
I want the cybernetics.
Yeah, I want the cybernetics. I want to crash land on a planet, and it's better for me to have my friend rescue or get rescued than for me to basically commit suicide and wake up. So yeah, I think that's super.
What do you think of that, AAK? Are you still in chat? You got anything to say to that?
Great, on the prison side, and then let's talk about the social and the group gameplay, because I think that's a big part of it. We've talked a lot about emergent gameplay systems, and a lot of that depends on the sort of social and group gameplay.
Well, and that ties into our front
You missed
ends,
it, dude. Hold on. Here, I'll let you listen to it again. It's sweet. It's sweet goodness.
You will get rescued. Keep your ship as long as possible. You want to keep alive as long as possible.
I want the cybernetics.
Yeah, I want the cybernetics. I want to crash land on a planet, and it's better for me to have my friend rescue or get rescued than for me to basically commit suicide and wake up.
Music to your ears, huh?
Yeah, I think that's super great, on the prison side, and then let's talk about the social and the group gameplay, because I think that's a big part of it. We've talked a lot about emergent gameplay systems, and a lot of that depends on the sort of social and group gameplay.
Well, and that ties into our front ends. Basically, even our launcher and Spectrum associated with it. There's the how you group with people.
Hey, let's not call names on it now. We don't know what they're doing with it, but we don't know what they're doing with it, but because I think there are gonna be reasons for medical beacons, but it's clearly something changed there long term.
There's a lobby associated with it. There's the front end option menu. All that stuff we know needs to work, and that has been a focus of kind of us in talking about how we can update the lobby and update grouping with people, just because we know it is a pain right now. So
yeah, right. It's basically we talked about it before.
Yeah.
We basically have 3 different areas of friends at this moment that have different management sort of techniques. You've got Spectrum.
And it's also I have to reach out to you, and then you have to reach out to me.
Back to you, and if it's all case sensitive, so if I typo and I don't have a cert, there are all sorts of different layers of usability to there, and really in the end, what it's got to be, and and we mentioned front end definitely, but it goes all the way, it's really from our website all the way down into the game, and you're playing with your buddy.
You mentioned one thing earlier on the server object container streaming, to where if the tools basically make it too difficult to achieve a desired result, then people have a tendency to basically, to do less of that, and that's very much been the case, which is a lot of what we're talking about here requires significant amounts of user interface work. And we've done this over on my side. The service beacon still doesn't have features that we wanted in, from version 1, because every bit of that UI work is so expensive, and you're always competing it against something else I could get
Still don't.
amount of time. And so with the new building block stuff that we've had coming online recently, that aspect of it should become dramatically faster.
Yeah,
No, It did not. At least not with that example. That's freaking annoying. Because no, the beacons are still fucking trash. In fact, they're worse. They've taken multiple types of beacons out of the game, and it had nothing to do with UI. It was priorities, and beacons have not been prioritized. We don't even have refueling beacons. We have refueling gameplay, which I'm pretty sure when they launched it said was necessary for Pyro, and you can't even spawn a beacon to ask somebody to come give you a refuel. You got to post it in global chat, which is insane. That better be a thing for 4.0. But the fact that like beacons haven't gotten any better is very bad and very annoying.
I mean, that's the tech thing. We've been investing in the sort of UI tech, which we've done some ATV episodes on. It's still got some stuff to happen, but it's becoming easier. That hopefully is something that will pay off in us being able to expand things like, the group system and front end and during the game, and just getting into the, your Moby Glass and getting the Galactopedia or all that sort of stuff.
It's about empowering the teams too, because before we used to have a very much a bottleneck with the UI team, but now every single team is getting used to using the building blocks, and then it's just making sure that we have the oversight, so we have the cohesive nature of the UI experience and the UX experience. But groups and lobby and all of that is definitely on all of our radars and is very important to us, just because when we play the game, we have to go through the same headaches. The same headaches.
Todd, what's your username?
Well, and also, I know, like for Sean, which we should talk about, because at CitizenCon,
oh boy,
we showed the very first iteration.
Here we go.
Of Theaters of War, right?
Yeah. Let's
go. That's actually one of
We've
the big use cases, Arena Commander Theaters of War, which is like, how is everyone going to get together to play the game, lobby up? So do you want to just tell it? I mean, because Theaters of War is pretty cool.
And
we've
I'll segue
still got a lot of plans for it, but
absolutely. I mean, it's a real nice segue to go from the group stuff, because the group friend system and everything all ties into things like leaderboards and matchmaking and all those, and it all has to be kind of dealt with not as one, but in a sort of holistic way that we see top down a very, very good vision of that. So we showed Theaters of War, and again, this was, it's a 40-man map because we had a lot of vehicles on it, and we wanted to bring it to CitizenCon and see what the players liked. And one last piece of it was there's a huge breadth of lore that we have in Star Citizen, and you hear all these stories about Lore Maker's Guide to the Galaxy, and because we have this simulation aspect of Star Citizen, I always thought it was really interesting to be able to do like a Gettysburg reenactment or something that you were actually experiencing with, in the flesh, in a simulation kind of environment, but within the Star Citizen universe. So we can tell some stories, I think, that are really interesting. We have a huge breadth of lore. And again, the one that we showed within CitizenCon was called The Crossroads of Crime. So it told the story of the Nexus system and how the Nexus system was strip mined. None of the resources existed anymore. They had a company come in, the Hathor group in this particular case. They bought up the entire thing, strip mined the whole thing out. And then as they pulled out, there was zero police force, there was no security. So it became a haven for all the criminals, within the verse. And at some point, anybody that was up to no good was going to be crossing through this system. In this particular scenario, the UEE advocacy is trying to come in, and the first planet that they tried to take back was Nexus 3. So this is them going into Nexus 3, and they meet up against one of the more notorious outlaw games called The Supreme. You can imagine how these guys will react when somebody's trying to take it back. Not only are they going to be hyper aggressive, but I mean in the sense that they're not going to let them take anything back. So they try to take out the entire planet as they're getting pushed back with mining lasers and just kind of destroy what's left there if you're going to come take it. So this is a 30-minute adrenaline-packed, guaranteed combat scenario that's just in your face.
So I think it's cool. I mean, the thing I would also say
is
that,
it was a large part of this was supposed to be in order to test FPS and get better understanding of how FPS and vehicles and weapons all interact with each other, which is absolutely that we need that, right? In the PU, you can't get that many battles together without people having to spend a half hour respawning. But clearly, Theaters of War wasn't needed either. I think that work got folded into the Arena Commander improvements we've seen since then, like the custom lobbies and all that kind of stuff. And we can still do that in Arena Commander now. I think Theaters of War is just going to be larger forms of Arena Commander missions that we eventually get in that game once the game can support it. Battlefield,
why,
basically.
Like Theaters of War, we went for a certain style.
Yeah.
Why is Theaters of War
unique? Our technology is what makes us able to do things that are unique. So the reason it's called Theaters of War, and one of the big parts about it is that we transition phases within this level, and the combat changes dramatically, and we balance it very, very differently. So a great example in Crossroads of Crime is phase 1 is a compound. You have to take out anti-air. So you're the advocacy coming in, you have to take out these anti-air turrets because you can't bring any of your ships in when those anti-air are active by the Supreme. Once you've taken that out, our next phase is about a 4-kilometer run where the defenders have brought their ships in. The advocacy is starting to bring some of their ships in, but there's a moving combat, and it's very dynamic. So this is what most games can't do. They can't go to the scale that we've gone because we have this tech. Then once you've...
We also couldn't go to the scale, unfortunately.
Control tower that's actually controlling a space station and a mining laser. You go Battle of Endor straight up. And there's no loading, there's no top, there's no little fakey cutscene or anything.
So you're not
like
on a
that.
limited map, it's huge, you can go anywhere, you go to
go.
orbit, you've been down on the ground.
Exactly, and we could play it from orbit all the way down if we wanted.
We
could play it upwards.
Which is basically the thing that Star Citizen has, is that level of both the detail, like the the fidelity of that first person FPS, but scaling all the way up to
all the way.
space.
And like this was just to be fair, this is still a really small example because you could take this, again, Star Citizen's it's just such not a typical game. It's not just levels, like we're talking, these sort of scenarios can happen over the span of a solar system, over the span of multiple solar systems. I mean, if you want to put the enemy base on the other side of the solar system, go ahead. I mean, this is...
Just be a long QT.
Just be a bit of a long QT and a little bit less
So last thing
combat,
on theater as well, because that's all super cool. And
all right, I've talked enough about Theaters of War. Let's get to Alpha 3.9 Pillar Talk. This was early to mid 2020, and it was the last one we got, unfortunately. This is after, this is when people stopped meeting in person. Excuse me. So I think the pandemic kind of killed these for them, but also it was also an excuse. They could have done these over the phone, but they just didn't do them anymore. This should be an interesting one, though. It looks like we've got, can't remember his name, but the guy who basically helped to spearhead the existence of server meshing in the game. So let's see what they talk about here, if it's significant and if it gives us any more info.
Back to Pillar Talk.
No, wow, were we away for commercial break?
Welcome back.
Flashback.
All right.
Sponsored by Drake.
It's sponsored by Drake over my shoulder here. So Pillar Talk, just a real quick recap for what, reminding people what these are. So during the week, we generally do Inside Star Citizen Live. Those shows are a little bit more about the what and the how, whereas this show's supposed to be about the why. Generally before...
Paul Reindell, that's right. Call him Quicksilver.
So we have 3.9. That's the one that we're all talking about. That's hot on our lips these days. So we've got a lot of content, as you guys probably know. I don't know if you knew that. New missions, new Babbage and its 3 moons are coming, prisons, actor status system, Esprit Prowler, and M50 updates, volatile cargo, and so much more. However, those features...
They did these too much. This is like the third Pillar Talk in the space of 6 months. They should have done these maybe twice a year and kept them going and not dove into, like somebody said earlier, this feels like a patch talk instead of a Pillar Talk. It shouldn't be about a specific patch like this. It should be about the major game systems. I think this could be like a not mini CitizenCon, much smaller than a CitizenCon, but updates that matter about the whole game and not just the patch that's coming up. I don't know. Pillar Talk seems like the wrong kind of name for it.
What more?
Oh, well, we'll get there. We'll get there, Chris. Hold on. So, obviously, many of those features have been talked about a lot lately.
Guy with the cool hair still with CIG? Paul? This guy? He was the one who, on stage at CitizenCon last year, presented server meshing working. It was him up there with Chris.
Lately on some of our shows. So we kind of want to talk about other features, 3.9 features, and other tech being put in on 3.9. So I wanted to jump in first.
Oh, the guy on the left, Aaron Kyron Davis? Yeah, he's still there.
Yeah,
to kind of take us
Eric Kyron Davis.
Why do a unified friends list? Well, you got to understand what unified friends list really means, because we had separate friends databases. There was a couple different ones, basically, that didn't necessarily talk to each other. So, for example, on Spectrum, I might have added Paul as a friend on Spectrum. I wouldn't necessarily...
Never transitioned into
I
game.
would never see that in the game. The same vice versa. If I added him in the game as a we call it platform friend, I wouldn't see him on Spectrum. So that was kind of the first thing to work out, and that took some back-end services to make sure that this was all talking to each other and coming from the same place. Now, on top of that, we wanted to make that all real time. So as somebody on Spectrum is adding you, we wanted to see that in the game immediately.
Whether it's on your web platform, the game, it's all the same. You can see it. It's live.
But there's no connection between Spectrum like chat, and I think they really need that. We really need to be able to access more chat channels in the actual game on the Moby Glass.
As a
Voice
more
and text
presence,
chat.
You kind of would know, oh yeah, look, Sean's on Hurston. I can actually be in Spectrum.
Exactly.
Seeing Sean, and I can see.
You can see the
he's
status.
He's in the PU right now. He's in Stanton on Hurston.
Exactly. Right. So it's just stuff that, honestly just needed to get worked out. And this is the inevitable, starting mark for what is really social management tools. So it's not full rich presence yet. We can't tell you exactly where in the verse they are. I can say you're online and you're in the PU. And there was one thing as well that, I really hope forward we move into, and it's something that you had mentioned a long time ago, and I think it's the orgs really want this, but it's being able to,
we do.
within some sort of social panel, social control.
I don't even know what it is, but yes, we do. We want it. Orgs want stuff.
Be able to work on, the military calls it radio etiquette, where, the commander can talk to the captain can talk to the pilot, pilot can talk to, but let the orgs sort of organize that stuff. So all those controls, whether that's org alliances and, all these kind of things, that's where this will all go to. It gives the players the ability.
Nobody told you to shoot
They had
me.
the ability, but an easier way to play together, which really.
Mrs. Tomato just creeped out of the darkness. We don't have any lights in this house anymore. She just creeped out of the darkness and picked up a Nerf gun and looked at me. You creep. Also, yes, the idea of the tiered voice comms, I think, is going to be a way that they can get people to use Spectrum in-game voice comms instead of using Discord, because that being able to limit stuff based on your position in the game or the ship you're on is pretty key.
Should just
Irresponsible.
Should just be that easy. I wish we could do it with our.
They don't even know how to get it.
Yeah, we could. So that's so great. So the unified friends list obviously is quite a cool feature coming. Plus the foundation we've got here, but persistence.
None of your normal
pause
shooty
or-
shoots.
we
Your
obviously
shooting
did some
friends
stuff
are in
for
chat.
3.8.2,
Yep.
right? And so now what do we got for 3.9 and why? That's maybe a redundant question to ask what persistent does for us, but what is this?
I mean, I guess you can
Well,
answer the
I mean,
question.
we go to 3.9, the stuff that you've earned so far on 3.8.2.
Exactly.
Will stay with you.
Me personally, I think it's a big step in the right direction. We can lose some in-game persistence, but we can't really lose people like their earned UEC or their items they bought and the ship they bought in-game, right?
So, and hopefully we've cleaned up some of the initial glitches of it. I mean, of course, I think we'll, if there's an exploit and someone's figured out a
No,
way to get a
instead
couple
Frisch
billion
just said,
credits, we
Frisch
reserve
just
the right to
spawned
either
sing mode
individually
instead of
edit
shooting.
people's accounts, so we can just take the money or the items away from them. Or
No, Mrs. Tomato does not edit my videos. Now I'm muting myself.
Occasionally we may decide, well, we need to just reset the database
Yeah, sure.
and do a general wipe, which we're going to
Yeah,
try
it's the
not to do
podcast.
that if possible, but you never know because we're constantly adding sort of new structures. So, we got our next, the next stage on the persistence, which Paul can probably talk about, is sort of the iCache side of it, which is more more fidelity in
And the ship, we can't really lose people like their earned UEC or their items they bought and the ship they bought in-game, right?
So, and hopefully we've cleaned up some of the initial glitches of it. I mean, of course, I think we'll, if there's an exploit and someone's figured out a way to get a couple billion credits, we reserve the right to either individually edit those people's accounts, so we can just take the money or the
Oh my
items
God,
away.
in the
Or
neck.
apply a general cap.
Why
Or
do you
just
go
a
for the
general
neck?
cap, as Paul says, or even,
There you go, Witch Space.
occasionally-
Thank you, by the way. Nobody in chat would do the dang points, and she was just sitting here waiting. You're blessed. Thanks for getting me shot.
We may decide, well, accounts, so we can just take the money or the items away from them.
Or apply a
just,
general cap.
or just do a general cap, as Paul says, or even occasionally.
And
we
now
may
I will continue to do my singing, because Frisch wants me to
We're going to try not to
sing.
do that if possible, but you never know because we're constantly adding sort of new structures. So we got our next, the next stage on the persistence, which Paul can probably talk about, is sort of the iCache side of it, which is more more fidelity in the persistence. So what we have right now is saying, well, these are the items you have, and we're storing those in a way that can survive the patches, but we're not necessarily storing like every item. We need the iCache, the foundational, that sort of micro persistence to do the physical inventory, and that's a big thing. And the other thing that opens up, which is sort of the next stage, which is
There's the
bigger
points.
things, but it would be now, because we can persist anything. You can be a player or an organization. You can go down onto a, like all those beautiful shots that people share of Microtech and go, I'm going to set my homestead up here. Well, we will, with that technology there, that is what we need to be able to do that, and that is our plan. So when that's online, we're working on the aspects that would include sort of what you would call base building. So you would go there, you'd have to bring in the right resources and sort of create your little homestead or your base. So organizations or players can create their own areas of interest, and essentially will help sort of build out and populate the persistent universe as much as we on the game design side. So as we get these things on, as we get closer to that, we get closer to this sort of completely sort of dynamic universe that you can sort of go anywhere, leave things, build things, destroy things, pick things up. It's and I think when we get to that, it's going to be pretty amazing.
Exactly, and like iCache is obviously one
That's
piece
all
of the puzzle.
posts. Interesting thing that they're not bringing up that much here is server meshing. A lot of persistence talk throughout all these pillar talks, but not server meshing. There was a lot of shifting going on. Not like big deal shifting, but definitely in the understanding of the back end during this time. And a lot of the things they're saying feel like they're post-server meshing things, even though they're not saying server meshing here. Although they might talk about 4.0 here at some point.
Our internal high-speed database to store all that data, because obviously that's a lot of data, right? If every single bottle can be persisted and restored, but even iCache is just one piece where server OCS is a big part of that too, right? So something needs to take the data and stream it in and stream it out and restore it properly. And there's a lot of tech under the hood developed right now, which obviously people won't see, like all the features you talk about, like they come eventually, but people won't see them in 3.9 just yet. But we built a lot of the foundation yet.
Because
like the server OCS on the server, for example, when we rolled that out in 3.8, which was a big win for us. I think people out there, they were like, oh, we expected to be like better performance or whatever, while in reality it is one giant building block to like get to this full persistent universe.
That's because we were expecting it bigger because client-side OCS was so good.
Right now, with
silver hair guy seems smart. He is a freaking genius.
You don't really see the benefits yet, but for us internally, it's a real big milestone to get to exactly that vision where we can store every single object and we can stream that area out, and we push all the changes player did to that, like we push that up into the database, and then when someone else comes back to that area, we stream it all back, and it comes back in the exact same state.
If you have the iCache and you have the server streaming, which we have, they work together, those two are necessary for the 100%. Server meshing.
Oh yes, exactly.
In the server meshing, because we can have tens, hundreds of servers all communicating with each other, we just need to be able to save out any arbitrary area with its full state, which means whatever items were there or not there or whatever, to some backend, so that when we come in, we can stream it back in, whether we stream it out on this server or this server or this server, the state is the same between all of us. And then you also should get much more of the performance impact. So yes, well, like Paul says, while you don't see the front end feature yet, getting these things in are actually quite exciting for us technically, because once they're in, that we know, okay, now that enables this next stage, and once we get these several stages in, then all of a sudden, all this great sort of dynamic, tactile, universe with state that can go there with many, many players all together in the same areas becomes possible.
And that is the path that we are approaching, maybe not quite the end of, but we're getting close to. So I think a lot of people are now starting to look out for these bigger things they're talking about and the progress they're making. And they're bringing them up. Base building, capital ships, new star systems. Like a lot of this stuff is this stuff that's now being regularly talked about. So it's good. It's just been a while.
And we talked about it in the last Pillar Talk exactly, and it was all theoretical. But I did mention one other benefit during that last Pillar Talk that absolutely was in place, and Paul mentioned it, but the load times. The thing was just generally now default for a developer. It's about 7 gigs when it loads up. It's so light in comparison to the 45 that it was.
Before
exactly.
It was loading the entire universe. And now, as a developer, you usually have one server and one client, and I'm the only client. And I see like a lot of benefit with that.
It's crazy.
The server starts up immediately.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Big benefits behind the scenes. For us.
Exactly. The quality of life, not just in the front end, which is this long-term thing, but all these benefits, even the developers. I mean, that's really cool to hear, right?
100%.
That's something that you may not notice. So with 3.9, we're focusing now on quality of life with this release.
Yeah, and quality of life.
I feel like 3.23 was the first real quality of life update. Like, we did start to see a little bit of quality of life sneaking in over the last maybe couple of years, but it did not feel like we were getting much quality of life back in the 3.9, 3.10 era. Maybe I'm probably missing the smaller details, but
a lot of things as far as the player is concerned. So from my standpoint, a big focus has been, and it's mandated from Chris and Aaron, which is the player experience, the quality of life of playing the game. So there's no frustrations, there's no annoyances. They can do the things, they can play the way they want to play when they want to do it, basically, in an intuitive way. But I think it also goes down to a more technical level, which is sort of build stability.
We're definitely trying to.
How was the play with GII, Abdi?
Build and try to at least be as stable as the previous build or even more stable, and we're willing to hold the build before it goes live for a little longer to get to that stage. So we'd rather not push it out and say, oh, we've made exactly this date, but it's crashing all the time.
Exactly. And so there's always the balance between like obviously you can't spend too much time on it because that takes away development time.
And you also
but it also needs to be enough time so people can actually enjoy the game and like start playing the game.
I'll tell you, and sometimes it sort of goes up and down a little bit because for instance, server OCS, right? That actually was a massive fundamental change in the back end because like parts of the universe just would not exist in the server anymore, and they used to.
We got to get in game, Abdi.
We would see issues that would get.
I do hope that the internet at our new place works well enough for me to be playing more.
We got a little bit, we took a little hit of the stability, but we've been fixing and moving those things on. In general, we're doing lots of little things. I think also, by the way, isn't in this 3.9 we've reduced the
the latency,
the
rewind time.
For
yes,
the rewind time for the FPS stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
So Star Marine will be much better,
it's going to be way snappier.
And so will the PU.
And the PU, but the PU benefits a little. And I think, when did I talk about this last on ISC? I can't remember when, but the PU benefits a tiny bit less than Arena Commander because it's really good when the server performance is perfect, right? So once we get
30 frames a second on Arena Commander, great.
Everything's great. Once it gets a little cratery, to the fives or so, but we don't. I guess it does still happen sometimes when the players get all spread out. But anyways. Yes, it's in there, and yes, there is an improvement, especially for a fresh server when it's running really fast.
All right, so another thing we've been working on, player interaction system, personal inner thought improvements.
Good Lord, look at that title. That's like a paragraph.
Sure. So, when the players are playing...
we're still in Turkey. In fact, we're in the process of moving to our new place. It is further outside the city. It's pretty remote to the point where our internet is possibly making me a little nervous about streams when we get there initially. So we're going to do some experimentation and see how that will work. But we're working on getting wired internet over there. Right now, we're going to be functioning off hotspots that we hope will be able to function well enough. And we are anticipating Starlink showing up in the area sometime this year. We've put down our deposit, as Mrs. Tomato said in chat. But we have to wait for that possibility. So until then, we're just working on normal hotspots that work on the 4G, 5G network, and we'll see how it goes.
The button mappings. And you've seen this on live streams or anything. Everybody hits escape, goes to the control. Okay, how do I pull out the flashlight? Okay, how do I do the dance emote? Okay, how do I
holster my weapons? Which, by the way, is my pet peeve because every time I'm like testing,
it always changes
and
too, right?
Change the keys, and I'm like, holster used to be on J, and it was like, Yeah, no, I think maybe it's R now. Oh, but you got to hold R instead of just reload. And I'm like, ah!
It is the worst when you're standing there as a director, or I'm sure as the CEO going,
Yeah.
how do I go third person again?
Yeah, that's
All
right.
right,
That's
yeah. Or, well, that's an easy one.
It's
but
like
yeah,
a quality of life
holstering.
improvement was needed on this side. Yeah.
Yeah, and we used to joke that the button baron has struck, and like it just got changed. But anyways, to do away with that completely, not only having good default mappings anyways, is to be able to give the players some ability to not just remap that, but to have access to all their actions in-game contextually and quickly. We had to
And
cover.
also opens up, like, for instance, like one of my pet peeves is we've got all these great emotes.
Yep.
But before to access them, you had to go into chat and like slash dance or whatever.
You have
it
to
would
know
be.
And that's
them.
if you know they're there.
And if you know they're there, and then the whole idea of the personal and thought system was to sort of open
Oh my
up,
God. I forgot
yeah.
that you had to actually type in your emote if you wanted to do it in chat.
different stances or action, like whether you could want to be dancing or sitting down or whatever it would be,
Yeah.
or all the various emotes, salute. And so it's just one place you can go select it, and the concept is sort of, it's a little bit, I mean, because I've talked
For
about
anybody who's wondering what they're talking about the first iteration of that circular menu you can pull up to do all your interactions and
there,
stuff.
and you can play StarCraft with just the mouse.
Yep.
But once you start to learn the hotkeys, then you sort of become you're the pro player. You can do things much quicker.
200 actions per minute.
But what we need is just someone. All they know is the simple, FPS, WASD, running around, your interaction key, your mouse. And with that, you should be able to do everything, figure out how to use a ship, how to use weapons, how to do all these things, access all these actions. And that really was the idea of the
Yeah, and that
personal
was the
thought.
intent. That was the exact intent that he gave to us, which was make playing the game a little bit easier. That's really what that comes down to. Is playing that easier out of the gate.
Right.
That was the thing, because the controls haven't really changed. But your access to those is. So now you don't have to go into our key mapping stuff, which actually isn't connected to our Illustrator. You have to go into a big list and figure out where your key's going to be, or where your button's going to be.
Yeah.
Within the inner thought, within the radial, you can just assign the key right there, and it even tells you what it is. So you can adapt your style of play in situ to different shortcut commands if you want, or just kind of remap it all right there where you want it to be. So that's really nice. But then further to that, we've got shortcuts to different categories. So the idea here is that your interaction system or your inner thought system is like a it's a lighter version of the Mobigas. It's what you're doing in situ. So you're not in barracks preparing your weapon and taking it all apart and cleaning it and doing everything, but you're reloading it or you're changing out the ammo real quick.
And I mean, you kind of touched on it a bit, but the other thing that I think is really cool with it is the fact that you can you can bind any key to any of the action, and you can rebind dynamically right there in the personal and thought. So there's no going to an option screen. Like most games, you always you go to an option screen, you do it. Here, you literally, it's kind of like
As you're doing it.
Car radio, you just hold number one for a second, and then it's programmed to the station you're on, right? Well, this is the same thing, which is like you're going to hold the key down for a period of time, and then it binds to that action that you're highlighting in the personal and thought. And so you can sort of rebind on the fly the things that you're commonly doing. So you go, oh, you know what? I'm playing with my group, and I want to be able to give them some hand singles because we're playing FPS, and I want to be able to go like this. So you can bind
that to whatever you want.
To whatever keys you want, and you can move it around. So if you don't like, for instance, me going, I hate holding R to holster.
So you can easily flip your friend off in the middle of combat. Nice.
Probably fine for holster, right? H holster, who knows? So I could do H, but I mean, that's I think that's a big UX usability. Positive for the game. And those are all the kind of little things that we need to get into the game.
That's why we're kind of taking some of the stuff into the new role where we're kind of pushing some design and some of the feature teams. Same idea that we used to do our developer tools with, just for our players, because it's like push the player experience, make it easy for the player to play our game a little bit. And I'm really liking how that's going, and I think it's working.
Great. All right. So attachment UI. So that was something we wanted to talk about a little bit more.
Oh yeah,
understanding what that is.
We're
going to segue into that.
Whoops.
I think I have to say.
Really not much else interesting to talk about.
Maybe talk a little about New Babbage and the Moons. They want to cover that, like what's coming into this and how they were made. And
I really think an environmental site, like I think some people just think, oh yeah, it's New Babbage landing zone, what's special about that? But I think there's a lot of, it's makes Star Citizen special is that our locations, even though we use procedural tools to help sort of create at scale, they're very specifically authored.
Yes.
You know, we
They're
have a
very
lore,
unique.
we have a universe,
character.
we have a history,
Yes.
and you can feel it. And so when you visit the places, you feel that. And I feel like that's kind of one of the things that makes Star Citizen special. Even though we don't have a billion planets or anything yet, you do feel like when you go to Microtech, it is different than you're going to Hurston, for instance, when you go to the moons. And so and as we build tools to allow us to sort of create that stuff quicker, but still with that same level of quality, it'll be great. But I really love that, and I feel like the environment team did an amazing job on New Babbage, and it's going to be fun to go around there and get your burger or get your coffee. Or just hang out, and there's another nice thing which we also showed off in ISC is that I really
don't ever just hang out in cities. Someday maybe. I hope that there are reasons to do so, but at least as of right now, I rarely use cities for anything other than shopping.
Ability now to sort of change our light states based on the time of day. So it's also the interior New Babbage. One of the really cool things about it is it's one of the first implementations of that, and also there's a whole area, there's a whole bar with a DJ, and at nighttime there's laser lights, and it's a party scene, and during the daytime it's a bit more of a sort of a chill day drinking scene, and it's
Both equally cool.
The chill day drinking scene.
So it's great. The 3 moons, which I think we've also done some ISC on, that's they actually created those in I think it was like 2 weeks per moon for one person. So it was 3 moons, each one took 2 weeks basically. And those look great. I mean, they're some of our best looking ones. So, and we're, now that
3 moons, each one took 2 weeks, going from, I think it took them a full quarter to do the 2 moons of R-Corp. So that sort of like that can tell you just how quickly they can probably do moons now, 3 years later. And if you consider any star systems that don't have factions or landing zones in them, essentially it's mainly the Planet Tech team that's got the brunt of the work. So star systems that are a little more barren and more based on just having planets and moons with little points of interest scattered throughout, they won't add a ton of content, but they do add more star systems. And clearly the Planet Tech team's gotten pretty good at making those.
team's off doing some stuff in another star system, which is looking quite good, but that's another story.
After 3.9.
But I think there's going to be a lot of fun. Definitely keep people busy for a while. So I think that's really cool. And then, I think the other big thing in 3.9, ding.
Okay, got it. Let's hear it. That's the ending
The other
bell.
big thing in 3.9 is the prisons, which I mentioned kind of at the top, which I think is you need consequence when you have something like a law system. And so you now end up in a prison and you've got to do your time. And so there's a consequence to it. And we got some fun stuff, like you can potentially find a way to escape from the prison. You can also go down and sort of reduce your time spent by, mining down in the caves there and basically getting what we call merits that will sort of reduce your time earned. It's kind of a fun instrument. And it's also, it's a very beginning building block of, fully fleshing out sort of the lore and law enforcement, which would include bounty hunting side. So we've got a lot more stuff planned for the prison stuff going beyond this V1 implementation we've got, where we'll have the ability to have prison fights and all sorts of kind of fun stuff. On the other side, the bounty hunting side, we've got some stuff long term where we want you to be able to track down other players, secure them, put them in your ship, take them, drop them off at the local advocacy office, and then that person wakes up in the prison, and you.
It's that bounty hunting V2 stuff. I got a video probably coming out about that tomorrow, where we'll discuss more of these details, because they mentioned this a few times throughout the years, but we're sadly not getting it yet. Because there's a lot of stuff you need for this system.
We've got some stuff long term where we want you to be able to track down other players, secure them, put them in your ship, take them, drop them off at the local advocacy office, and then that person wakes up in the prison, and you'd be able to hopefully track them.
Oh my God, Echo.
So we want you to sort of basically play that Mandalorian style. I mean, like if I watch The Mandalorian, which...
We have this man modding our chat and he's never played Mass Effect. My name is Commander Shepard, and this is my least favorite Zeppelin on the Citadel, okay? Come on, man.
I'm not sure everyone in England gets to watch this yet, but it's definitely over here. It's great. But when you watch The Mandalorian, it feels very much like it's the sort of Star Citizen experience, which is, it
helps they stole the Cutlass, but
Hey,
they did.
Abdi, don't tell him there's nothing wrong with that. There's definitely something wrong with that, all right? You hear me? You haven't played Mass Effect? You think you should be here right now in this chat? Huh, buddy? Buddy, pal, Echo? It's okay. It's okay. I won't judge you. It's cool. You can go along in life and be naive and not experience greatness. It's fine. Keep enjoying what you're doing.
It's still, yeah. Well, David Hobbins is the lead concept artist on it.
I know.
He did work on, although he didn't do the Cutlass. But no, he is a great concept person. But anyway, the idea of like sort of bounty hunting and tracking someone is stuff that like we're working towards. So there's a lot. So the prison is like one of the elements that's, again, we talk about putting bits of the gameplay there. And of course, we're going to build on top of it. And I think by the time we finished all this stuff, it will be really cool. And that's all the part of things like the prison system is like one element that would add towards making your piracy and bounty hunting and sort of law enforcement cycles all work. And that's one of the elements, but it still needs other stuff, and we will get there, and that's kind of our sort of plan. But it's this iterative point where we put it's like putting another brick in the wall, and finally it's there.
It's always the last 10% which like brings it from
takes 90% of the time.
That too, but it also brings it from okay, there's a base system here to actually now it's a polished feature and you can use it intuitive, and it's fun to use.
Still got another like 70% to go for bounty hunting. I'll say this much. That it feels like maybe this wasn't even included in the video I'm releasing tomorrow. This makes it sound like bounty hunting V2 won't see its place in the game until we see another system update to the law system. So maybe when they're starting to talk more about the law system and reputation and stuff, that's when we should be expecting bounty hunting to be back on the development table.
I think that's the challenge, is like normal game development. You wouldn't be doing this out there publicly. Yeah. But we, because of the nature of the way the game is, we develop it with the community out there who support us. It's a totally different way, and I actually quite enjoy it because you get sort of the feedback and the early feedback.
100%.
And we can also make things better and more stable, longer term this way. But in the short term, it does present challenges because we always have to make sure that, for instance, we have as stable a build as possible. So we do spend a fair amount of time stabilizing a build that we may not necessarily do if we weren't having to release something every quarter. I think long term it ends up with a better product because we're iteratively testing it and we're iteratively getting feedback. But on a short term basis, it means that you always have to spend some time making sure you're triaging your current build and making sure it's working. So that's time that you couldn't be spending on 100%. A feature or polishing it. So, if you're expecting everything to be fully polished and working brilliantly the very first time you load it up, then it's
sure.
But then you would have to wait,
and then you would have to wait.
That's the flip side, yeah.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
That's the big advantage. People can like play right away and like they test out a feature, like the core development.
Like really close.
Not just I'm part of the last 10% where we polish everything.
Or I'm a beta tester.
Yeah, you're part of it like from day one almost, right?
Yeah.
So
I think that's pretty cool. I would say
got my entitlement processing.
There's definitely some smaller indie projects where it's very like that, and that's very cool. But like a project of like this size and this scale, there's not many people doing them, and the people that are the big publishers, and the big publishers would never do what we're doing because they just wouldn't want to have to be open to that much feedback.
No, because they're always canceling them.
Well, that's true. Well, that's the thing. Is like we're not, Star Citizen is never getting cancelled. We're just going to keep working on this thing until it is the best space sim or universe simulator, I should just say, not really space sim, because it's a complete universe sci-fi simulation game possible, and that's kind of cool, and it's fun to be working on it because
I'm also working on a supporter exclusive right now about this idea of it being a space sim, the idea of them de-simming this game, and where that argument is coming from. And it is interesting to hear them talk about this idea of being the best damn space sim, but never really clarifying what exactly that means. So I think that falls in line a lot with the changes that they're making right now and how they're angling this game and whether or not that really does go against the things they've been saying over the years.
It's I don't know. It's like I don't know. Feel like Willy Wonka, and it's imagination and whatever you can dream is possible.
All right, right on. I'm motivated. Let's go.
Yeah. Well,
Let's go.
Honestly,
I
I know I don't think we have anything more to add. I think that's a great wrap up. If you guys had anything else you wanted to add,
No, I
that's a great
think
place
Chris
to end.
nailed it.
Yeah, I think that, and you hear it here first. Star Citizen's never going to be canceled. Do you hear that? All right. Thank you guys very much for coming and for the Pillar Talk, and hopefully everybody enjoyed it. Well, let's get back to work.
All right.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks.
That's good end.
Yeah, that was a
hell of an end.
All right. So that is all of our Pillar Talks. And really, they only lasted... It lasted less than a year. From June 2019 until April 2020, we got some Pillar Talks that talked about the development of the game. Really, I think less about the long-term plans of the major pillars of the game and more about just like the major features in the next couple of patches, which is one thing, but doesn't feel quite like a Pillar Talk. I hope that they start doing something similar to this again. They don't have to be Pillar Talks where they get all the big heads together, but more Star Citizen lives that are similar to the Invictus Week ones, where you can get multiple people that can answer multiple questions together. These Star Citizen lives, I'd say, actually have been pretty good. Especially some of these earlier ones. These All About 2323 one was pretty good. Resource net management stuff was pretty good. So they've been doing okay with Star Citizen Live, but I do feel like we've missed out on some of these nicer programs from the past. And to be honest, I don't think these were all that great looking back on them. We got some decent info, but these could have been an email. Come on, didn't have to be a meeting. CitizenCon itself, I think, acts as a big enough Pillar Talk about all the major things going on with Star Citizen. They just need to make sure to hit them. This last year was fairly good, but they missed out on the economy. And I think if they're giving us updates on like AI, economy, star systems, mission systems, the engine itself, like the major things, keep us updated on that, and that's good.